We're going to talk really quickly about Valerian and the City of a Thousand Planets, the brand new Luc Besson film, okay? Very much looking forward to dive into this, talk a little bit about the film and the big risk that it had. It really should be Valerian and the Film of a Thousand Risks. That's what it should be called. Luc Besson, he directed a slew of movies that you've probably seen, directed The Big Blue, directed Leon the Professional. He's also behind the movie Lucy. He was a big player in the Taken franchise as producer as well. He's made quite a bit of money off of action franchises that have really spawned a lot of confidence in consumers and a lot of confidence in people in general in taking a concept that might have seemed like a big risk initially and then playing it off to be a very successful movie. Now, Valerian is based off a 1967 comic series called Valerian and Laureline, and it's coming out next week, July 21st in America, July 26th in its home country of France. It is the most expensive French production yet, costing 156.9 million euros, which equates to about 180 million American dollars. It also winds up being a movie that is largely independently financed by Besson through very different investments, such as pre-sales and equity investments. It's about 90% of the film's budget. So it's one of the most expensive independently financed movies ever made. Now, the reason that this movie is such a big risk is because its studio, EuropaCorp, just came out a couple weeks ago and posted record losses of $135 million. This comes right during their film's most of their 2016 movies were bombs or underperforming movies. You had 9 Lives, that Kevin Spacey film where his character turns into a cat. Less said about that. Had Shut In, a Naomi Watts thriller that failed to catch on entirely and garnered awful reviews, came out the same weekend last year as the movie Arrival, in addition to Miss Sloane, which was the Jessica Chastain film that also failed to catch on, totally missed the ball on Oscar season and such. Now, after $135 million in losses, EuropaCorp had to act defensively. So they had to, instead of partnering with Relativity Media like they had did before, Relativity Media, of course, famous studio, famous for its bankruptcy woes, they found another partner in the U.S. and they signed a multi-year deal with STX Motion Pictures Group, which is helping for the marketing and distribution services for Valerian, in addition to a couple of their other future films as well. Another movie that bombed too fairly recently by EuropaCorp as well was The Circle. Dominic Guanzon and I talked about that film fairly recently as well and talked about how that film really failed to catch on with audiences alike. So EuropaCorp needs a hit, and is Valerian and the City of a Thousand Planets going to be that hit? Talk about that for a couple minutes. So the film stars Dane DeHaan, Cara Delevingne, Clive Owen, Rihanna, Ethan Hawke. There's a ton of big names in this movie. If you saw Spider-Man Homecoming on Thursday or Friday night, I believe Thursday, I can say Friday, I believe Thursday too, they showed the first 5 minutes of Valerian in the theater before the film. And I'll tell you right now, when I was watching those first 5 minutes, I was thinking to myself, I could continue to watch this movie. I was like, I like the look of this movie. And this movie is a very, just from the looks of it, from the trailer alone, looks like a very strange, uniquely idiosyncratic film that we don't get a lot of. And that's the thing. Because these movies are such a risk, in order to do a movie like this well, you need to have a big budget. You need to have visuals galore. You need to have a decorative set design. And this is a movie that is, no matter which way you slice it, a big risk. It's operating, especially being a collaborative American-French made film. You have a film that is based on a property that not many Americans know, a comic series that not many Americans know, nonetheless a comic series from 1967. You have a cast that doesn't really put butts in seats. I mean, Dane DeHaan's movie, A Cure for Wellness, bombed, didn't do too well. He's not by any means a name. Cara Delevingne is a name, but not really one that gets people to go see movies. And Clive Owen, Rihanna, Ethan Hawke, Rutger Hauer, and John Goodman are all names of varying significance in film. Also in the film, too, is Olivier Megaton, who directed Taken 2 as well. Good friend of Luc Besson as well. So you have a cast that's a little bit too obscure as well. And then you have a budget of $180 million. According to Variety magazine, the film, in order to get into the black, which means in order to kind of make its money back, it needs to gross around $400 million worldwide. And is that possible? I don't think so. I don't see this movie doing particularly well in America. In France, it's a different story. I don't know how popular Valerian is in France. I do not know what the excitement level for this movie is, but this movie is coming out at a very risky time. I don't think there's any time that a movie known as Valerian in the City of a Thousand Planets would not be coming out at a very risky time to begin with, but it's coming out hot on the heels of Spider-Man Homecoming, War of the Planet of the Apes, coming out the same weekend as the highly anticipated Christopher Nolan drama Dunkirk. So it's got a lot of competition, and it's got a lot of competition from either reputable franchises or very reliable directors. And you have a movie here that looks very weird. It looks very strange. This might be the strangest big budget potential blockbuster movie since Jupiter Ascending in 2015 and Cloud Atlas in 2012. And I think we know what happened with both of those movies. Jupiter Ascending was helmed by the Wachowskis and bombed miserably. That was the Channing Tatum Mila Kunis film. And then you had Cloud Atlas, the Tom Hanks movie, that did okay in theaters, was banking on Oscar nominations, didn't get them, and wound up doing a mediocre box office run. I see Valerian in the City of a Thousand Planets making about $250 million worldwide. And the reason I say that is because I think the movie is going to do about 80. I would say, because it's so hard to predict a movie like this, I would say 50 to 70 million in America. I don't see it making a lot of money in America. I think it's coming out at a bad time. I think it's coming out at a time of crowded multiplexes to begin with. I don't see it making a lot of money in America. I see it making a bulk in France, where Luc Besson is more of a name. Its cast maybe have more potential to catch on over there. I think showing it in front of Spider-Man Homecoming was a good move. I don't know what kind of money they had to shell out for that, though. Showing the opening in front of it was good, because if you've seen the opening moments of the movie, it's very quirky, it's very goofy. It really lives up to that like idiosyncratic vibe that I keep talking about with this movie. I am very excited about this movie. These movies get me excited because you know what? I'm going into Valerian with no expectations. I'm going into a movie that looks amazing visually, helmed by a director who, even if I don't like a lot of his movies, I at least appreciate Besson's vision. I at least appreciate his willingness to take these big risks, especially at a time when his production company that he helps oversee is not doing well. This is a big risk. I also don't think EuropaCorp and Besson envisioned reporting $135 million losses at the time of this movie, but it only makes this movie that much more of a gamble, because EuropaCorp has specialized for years in making movies that have broad international appeal and that are slick genre sort of blanking on the word here, slick genre showcases, if you will. And I think they kind of lost their way with movies like Nine Lives, Shut In, and Miss Sloane. This is also the studio that, like I said, the studio that brought us Taken, Transporter, don't get it confused with Transformers, and stuff like that. So I think that there is a big risk involved, obviously. I don't know if it's going to be able to make it back, but I'd be interested to see, because in a time of Marvel movies, in a time of superhero oversaturation, I think it's important that we look at a movie like Valerian and the City of a Thousand Planets as a breath of fresh air that we should support, unless we want to see the Disney Marvel empire continue to thrive against either smaller movies or riskier big budget blockbuster affairs. That's my take, Sleep.